Hello, welcome to Living Grounded. I'm Ella, here with Tim. Hope you're having a good week. Sunday we kicked off our Christmas series, exploring Christmas through the eyes of some of the key figures in the Christmas story. And last Sunday we explored what the first Christmas cost Joseph. So you can have a listen to that on the Village app if you weren't there. Our first question today is, how do we be people of peace these holidays, especially when family dynamics are stressful and everyone else seems caught up in the chaos of Christmas?
Yeah, I resonate with this question, and there's an irony to it, isn't it? That the time where we kind of most long for rest and peace is often the craziest and the least stressful. And I think the gospel does give us an opportunity to be different in that space, to be, as the questioner says, people of peace or even peacemakers. And I think the answer is vertical before it is horizontal. So what I mean by that is that when we're relating to God rightly, I think we relate to humans better and get and actually be a person who can help others relate to each other better.
Yeah.
So I think the place that kind of came to mind, unsurprisingly, was Philippians 4. You'll know it when you hear it. Sorry, I should have found this before we got there. But anyway, here it is. This is Philippians 4. Rejoice in the Lord always. And I'll say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Now, if you look at the passage, and worth just having it open and having a look for yourself, but what is the grounds for us being a non-anxious presence in a place? Well, it's the Lord is near, and it's that he is near, so near that we can pray to him. He's not so far distant that he can't hear our prayers. He can hear our prayers and petitions. And so we can present our requests to God. So what is our grounds for not being anxious? Well, first of all, it's that God is the God of peace himself. The God who is the God of peace, Paul calls him the God of peace just down in verse 9. He is near to us and he is at peace in himself. God is not a chaotic figure. He's not embroiled in drama and old bitternesses and, slights and hurts. He is the God who he's like this, he is the calm waters, and he's near to us. And his desire is to transfer some of his peace to us. The peace of God, we can have that, is the picture of the verse. The peace of God that transcends understanding. Okay, God, think about this for a second. Here's something beautiful. This is the God who is sovereign over the whole universe. Now think about, we've got a lot of drama going on in our own families and little spheres. God is aware of every drama that is going on in the world. And that's a lot bigger than our drama. And yet he is calm, still waters, okay? He's okay. Because he knows where it's all going. He knows how it's going to work out. But what that means is that we can actually take on some of his calm. We can go, well, God's not worried. God's okay. And I'm with God and God's near to me, and therefore maybe I don't need to be worried today. So that's one part of it. We can be people of peace by resting in God's peace.
Can you expand on that a bit more? What do you mean when you say that?
Yeah. So, well, firstly, the reason we can actually be at peace, resting in his peace, is because our greatest conflict has been resolved. In Jesus, we've been reconciled to God. So this God of peace actually wouldn't be peace to us outside of Jesus. We'd be in conflict with him. But because of Jesus, we are at peace. We're not going to be held accountable for our sins, and we aren't in conflict with God. So that's the first part of it. we've got peace with this God. But secondly, peace with God is a promise of one day actually having eternal peace. So why is God at peace in himself? Well, because he knows the end. He knows where this is all going. Families may be chaotic now, stressful, dramatic, all of these things that we're experiencing, but one day they won't be. This will end. There is true hope, a certain hope of harmony, of peace forever. Won't that be nice? Won't that be wonderful? You will not have to endure this forever. But obviously, we exist in the time before that time. But that's why God gives us the gift of prayer. We can have peace in God, in the God of peace now, because he's given us prayer to call on the God of peace, who is at work in the chaos of the world. Okay, so God isn't just standing aloof from the chaos. He's at peace while being in the midst of it, working through it and in it. And so we can have peace because we can call on him in prayer. And we can call on him in prayer to be at work in our hearts, to give us that peace that transcends understanding. So to help us see some of these things, to help us rest in him, trust him. But also, we can pray that God would be at work in the hearts of others, that he might rein in some of their chaos and anxieties, first and foremost by hopefully bringing them to him and helping them to know the God of peace. But also, maybe not through that, maybe just through God's common grace work, that he might restrain them. Now, he doesn't promise to do that, okay? He doesn't promise that there will necessarily, he will rein in everyone's drama and problems. So you're going to have to continue to work at this. We're going to have to continue to exist in the midst of problems. But the beautiful thing is, when you rest in God's peace, you will be so much more equipped to be able to deal with that. So in thinking about that, I've talked about that in principle, but let me give you kind of two tips, two kind of practical things that you can do. Before you head into spaces that you think could be stressful, pray. Pray in the car, pray before the people arrive at your house. Ask God to be with you, to help you draw on his peace, but also to extend that peace to others. Help him, ask him to rein in the chaos and trust that he's near as you do that. But when things are feeling chaotic, this is the second tip, when temperatures are rising, when you find yourself wanting to fight or flee, that's when you need to train yourself to turn to God in faith. Just to kind of take that deep breath, but not just a deep breath as if, some sort of meditative thing. No. Turn to God in your mind and remind yourself that you have peace with God. That whatever else is going on, whatever kind of wind and waves are happening out there, you have peace with God. These tensions that you're watching, they will one day fade away. And compared to what you have in Jesus, these things are small. You've got it. You've got everything. You've got true peace to look forward to. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I feel like another thing, like on the prayer thing, that it's a way to process our, because obviously there's a place of grieving and being saddened by sin and brokenness. And so prayer is the place that we can process those feelings
With God.
Yeah.
No, very good. Very true. Yep.
Our second question on the topic of family. Family seems to be the top priority for non-Christians at Christmas time. So how does someone in a non-Christian family keep Jesus at the center of their celebrations while also navigating families' expectations and disappointments?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say this is generally true of most people, particularly in the areas we live in. And it's interesting. I mean, Christmas used to be the time of community getting together. And now it seems that's fragmented even further to just really be about the family unit. Street Christmas parties are on the down. And some of that, I think, is even going further. It's now becoming even... Actually, I couldn't even be bothered to catch up with my family at Christmas. It's too hard. But for the moment, family remains. And many of you will know this is a wrestle that I have. My family are not Christians. They aren't believing, and they never have been. And so this is, this has been ongoing kind of tension or area of space to navigate. My family isn't the hardest, I think, but there's still tensions to navigate. Um, Here's the thing, okay? It might be too late for this Christmas. Sorry, that's not a very hopeful thing. You're hearing it a week out. But what I want to give you is something for future Christmases and ahead. And I guess just general principles that are helpful, not just around Christmas, but in general as we wrestle with families wanting you to prioritize them more and over and against sometimes God, honoring God, attending church, attending Bible study, these sort of things. Here's the problem. We often make assumptions, I think, about what people think about our faith, about how seriously we take our faith, about what it looks like to be a faithful Christian and to live like a faithful Christian. We usually assume that other people, even non-Christians, kind of see things like we do. But actually, they generally don't. It's so alien to them that it doesn't compute, really. They don't realize how central the faith should be to the believer, is or should be to the believer. They kind of go similar to the politicians of our time who say, you can have a faith, but this is just something you need to internalize, and it's just between you and God, which is totally misunderstanding what the Bible says it is to have faith in God. It is a public faith. It is a faith that has costly decisions and so on. So they don't understand the place of church. They don't understand the place of Christmas or something along those lines. And so the number one way to keep Jesus at the center in the midst of a non-Christian family is to actually have clarity around that with them. So clear conversations that explain that to them.
We hate doing that.
I know that this is the last thing that many of you want to hear.
Yeah.
It feels awkward, but can I tell you it isn't? In fact, it's so much better. Look, we don't like confrontation. We don't like conflict. We don't like awkwardness. We want people to just read our minds, and sometimes we try to pretend like they can. But they can't. And that means you have to communicate. What I'm talking about is, at times during the year, certainly at time, if you have never done this before, you need to create a space, asking them to coffee or family dinner or something like that, where you just say, hey everyone, or hey mum, or hey dad, or hey brother, or hey sister. I'd really like the opportunity just to kind of explain to you guys why I want to say no to some of these when you invite me to this thing, or why I went to church rather than came to this family celebration, or why actually, even though I came to the family celebration, I was really cut up inside because I felt like I had to choose. Can I please just explain to you how central my faith is to me and my life, and why I think that's right, and how church fits in with that, and some other commitments that I make, and how that is not to diminish you guys as family, but it is also to acknowledge that there is this really important other space that I'm committed to. Do that well. Prepare that thought. Don't just wait for it ad hoc and, have 2 wines to kind of get your courage up and then just see what comes out. No. Prepare that well, because it's super important, right? That's gonna create a fundamental understanding amongst your family of where your faith sits.
We'll probably avoid more tension in the long run.
Hopefully. Yeah, you want clarity. You don't want confusion, right? Explain that you would love them to understand a bit more clearly about why church, why Christmas morning, or why Sunday afternoons. Explain to them why you find it really unhelpful when they book things in on a Sunday afternoon or a Tuesday night, if that's Bible study or something like that. Explain to them why you might actually say no in the future to these family gatherings. And if it would be really loving to you if they could just book them another time. This isn't easy, but it is really good. It's honoring to Jesus, and it's preventative medicine. Rather than kind of waiting till Christmas to have this tension and then you're like, oh, how can I say no to them? They won't understand. Help them understand. Help them understand well before these big moments come. Maybe those moments have already been and passed. That's okay. The best thing you can do is just come to them in humility and go, guys, can I tell you, I've been really wrestling with this. I found this so hard. I need your help. Can I explain it to you? So on. But what if they don't budge? Now, I've seen this. I've seen someone explain Jesus, their faith and so on. I've seen the family say, well, we're doing it anyway. Either be a part of it or don't. And that can happen. And it's really tough. And there may be compromises worth making, okay, I won't make it on time, but I'll get there, You're starting the family thing at 4:00, of course. I'll just get there at 6. I'm sorry, but I will get there because I do want to be with you guys, but I want to prioritize this. But sometimes it might mean missing out altogether. Look, can I encourage you? Your family is going to judge the seriousness of your beliefs on your decisions. If our decisions show Jesus to just be a little side addition to our life, just a nice little tick the box of faith, if we bow to pressure on our commitment to Jesus, then that is the impression they're going to get. That is what your Christianity is, and that's how significant Jesus is, which is not much at all. It makes them feel better, makes you maybe kind of feel better, maybe, depends, but ultimately it will not be for anyone's good. But if you live with Jesus at the center, then I think people really need to take notice then. Can I remind us all of Jesus' words? When his family comes to take him away from teaching and doing miracles, he says, "Who are my mother and who are my brothers?" Everyone who does the will of God is his answer. Here is a confronting reality for our time. But actually, this is true of all cultures. Our blood family is actually is not our first family. Our blood family is not our first family. Our first family is Jesus and his people. It's the children of God. And this family won't pull you away from making Jesus the center. In fact, they should help you and encourage you. And remember this, we will miss out on things in life. We will miss out on family events and so on. But again, let's have an eternal perspective. We may disappoint people, but let us not disappoint the one who made us and died for us. And though we disappoint people, let's show them the seriousness of our faith, that they might be drawn to that in a world that isn't very serious about much other than themselves.
Yeah, that's good. And just quickly, so then is there any place to make family a priority at Christmas time still?
Yeah, and so look, I do. There's a big part of me that would love to just crash after about Christmas Day, but we're going to spend a week with my wife's family because I think family is at the heart of God's creation. God created us to have family units. That's actually part of God's good design and helpful for ourselves, society. Done well, it's wonderful. Obviously, in some contexts, this can be problematic and so on. But I think generally speaking, it's really important to still prioritize family, both for unbelieving salvation, but also for ongoing support and encouragement, just in line with God's common grace.
Yeah, it's good. Our next question: how do we talk to more scientifically minded atheist friends in a way that's true to our faith, but not too intense for non-believers.
Yeah, I can just see one of my Christmas conversations kind of coming, and it will be one of these with one, in this case, one of my relatives. But so many of my discussions, to be honest, over the years with non-Christians have revolved around scientific arguments, and that's led me to do a lot of reading in this space. Because, to be honest, I think it was kind of the number one thing for a few decades back then. I don't think it is now. I think that's changed. But it's still a pretty significant blockage for a lot of people. And I just find it incredibly interesting. It's fascinating. Science is awesome. But I think that's the thing. The first mistake is to buy into the argument or accept the premise of the conversation being about Bible versus science or God versus science. It's not. That's actually to fall into a trap. Once you go into that place, you're falling into battle lines being drawn. It's a conflict and so on. But actually, it's really important to see that's not how the Bible positions itself. The Bible doesn't see itself as anti-science. In fact, it's the opposite, I would argue. I would argue the reason why that combativeness has kind of come about is a relatively modern thing that's essentially been designed and framed by a small portion of an atheistic scientific community that wants to make science the hammer that smashes God, essentially. But the moment that Christians kind of buy into that and respond that way, like, oh, we're being attacked, is the moment you've taken the bait, and the conversation won't be healthy or helpful from that point on.
Yeah, it's still not true.
It's not true that science is the thing to smash Christianity. I mean, science has zero capacity to disprove God. It can't do it. Science is the study of material things. God is immaterial. Science has zero capacity for disproving the supernatural. The whole point of the supernatural is that it happens outside of the laws of physics and nature and so on. And so therefore it can't be proved or disproved by science. Science has zero capacity for saying or proving that Jesus wasn't who he said he was. The greatest overreach of science has been to say that because of a Big Bang or evolution or billions of stars or a huge universe, that the God of the Bible can't be true. That's illogical. The truth is the Bible can actually accommodate all of these scientific theories. Now, be careful. Some Christians hear me saying that and they go, alarm bells, Tim believes in all these things. And it's like, well, look, to be honest, I don't want to make this session about what I believe about certain scientific theories. My point is that none of these scientific theories cannot be accommodated by the Bible. There's plenty of very faithful Christians who believe in these scientific theories and are convinced that the Bible has a way of saying, yes, we can fit with that. So none of these things, again, show that the Bible can't be true. But I don't think the answer is to get stuck into some of those areas as such. I think the thing to point out to any scientifically minded atheist person is the flip side of all these things. Whether it's evolution, whether it's stars, whether it's universe, whether it's Big Bang, all of these things still leave the scientist with a massive problem, which is why?
Yeah.
Where did it all come from? Why does it exist? And why does it all work? I read a book recently by a scientist and a philosopher of science, a Christian guy, Stephen Meyer, and I think he actually steals this from someone else. But the likelihood of our universe being the way it is, producing life like it has, the complexities, all of it fitting together, the Goldilocks nature of our universe. It's a bit like this. Imagine rolling a 6 on a 6-sided die. You roll 1 6. That's easy enough, right? What about rolling 2 6s in a row? You reckon you've ever done that?
I don't think so.
No? All right. But that's possible, right?
Yeah, it's possible.
Okay. What about 6 6s in a row? Look, it's pretty crazy.
Likely.
It's pretty crazy, but it's still in the realm of possibility. What about 76s in a row? So how long do you reckon it would take to do that, for that to happen? If you just sat there every day, all day, drip fed, whatever, and just rolled a dice until 70 times in a row, a 6 came up. Well, luckily, a mathematician worked it out. You would have to sit there for 100 trillion years.
Wow.
That's how long you'd need to be sitting there, okay? And that is the same probability of the universe being the way it is.
Wow. Sorry, I have to say, I just realized I said, no, I haven't rolled 2 6s in a row before.
Maybe you haven't. Maybe you're just not a real dice person, you know?
I don't play board games very often.
Yeah, there you go.
But sorry, yeah.
No, that's
amazing.
You've just like destroyed the big moment. Anyway, that's okay. So here's the thing, right? Okay, if that's right, then what takes more faith? Is it that random chance has produced all of this, human consciousness, all these things? Or is it that there is a God, a designer, a creator who made it all? And, I think you know where I land on that question. So to come back to the question, the first key is to avoid making it science versus God. The thing to realize and to help people see is the reason why we have modern science is actually because of Christians. It's because of Christians who believed in the reality of God, who made the universe in an orderly fashion with laws that worked and fit together and so on, and who believed that the understanding of the natural world was to understand God better and to see his power and beauty, which is true. As Psalm 19, the heavens declare the glory of God. God created creation for us to see something of him in it and to see how glorious he was in it. And so we can. Science doesn't disprove God, the Bible, or Jesus. These are not scientific arguments, they're historical ones. So honestly, I would just begin there.
Yeah. Are there some helpful books that you could point people to?
Well, look, like I said, Stephen Meyer, Return of the God Hypothesis is the book. Long read, a lot of science in it, but yeah, pretty fascinating and just helpful. It doesn't say that science proves the God of the Bible as such, just showing that science certainly doesn't disprove him, and when you put it all together, certainly leans us on the side of there must be a God.
Yeah.
So that's what that one does. There's another guy, Vern Poythress. He's basically probably more helpful for Christians, but basically showing how the Bible actually isn't against science, but is pro-science and helpful. But the big thing to bring people to, and the big thing to constantly pivot the atheist back to, is not arguments over some scientific theory that apparently disproves the Bible or something like that. It's to point them to the historical question. Scientists pride themselves on being rational people. Well, here is an opportunity for a rational wrestle and a rational response. If you can't prove that there is no God and no supernatural, what is the most likely thesis for the accounts of Jesus' life, for the accounts of his miracles, for the accounts of his resurrection? Having done that research myself, and if you keep an open mind that there could be a God and could be a supernatural, I think the most reasonable answer to that thesis is that Jesus is who he says he is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Our last question. In the latest episode of Living Grounded, you mentioned there are doctrinal things that might outweigh the argument for environmental stewardship. What are they? And despite that, do you think there is a positive obligation on Christians to care for the earth?
Yeah, good one. Thanks for this. And look, that's encouraging just to hear someone's listening. That's good. Yeah. No, look, and if you didn't hear the original one, I think it might be episode 42. It could be.
Yeah, I think it was a couple.
Yeah, I think it's 2 ago. And, you can hear the answer this is referring to. But yeah, my answer is yes. I do think the Bible gives us something of a hierarchy of doing, to put it in Maslow's kind of language.
Like priorities.
Priorities of what we should first as we go out and do stuff in the world. So I think you see it's something of it in Jesus' articulation of the commandments. Love God, love people. So love God kind of, I think, does come first. I think there is supposed to be some priority there. But what does it look like to love people? As we come to love people, I think you can also break that down to in a level of priorities. Now this is more implicit than explicit, but for instance, Matthew 28, Jesus's command to his disciples after his resurrection, he doesn't say to them, "Now go and care for the earth." He tells them, "Go and make disciples." And I think that does, when you put the rest of the data, like this earth is going to pass away, Matthew 24:35, the reality of heaven and hell, people won't be saved by you caring for the environment. They'll be saved by you telling them the gospel, showing them what it looks like to be a disciple. I think you put all of that together and our first priority to each other, loving people first and foremost, looks like making disciples, telling people about Jesus, strengthening them in their faith, helping them to grow, remain faithful in him. So let me just put that into concrete terms. Having a car is not great for the environment, but having a car can often be really helpful for making disciples. Alita and I, we would love to actually drop down to one car or no cars, but it would just make ministry almost just so difficult. So if you need a car to be able to do discipleship, you should accept the environmental cost of that. Another example, many churches around the world don't have access to recycling and exist in communities where they don't practice really good environmental stewardship. Should those churches focus on those sort of programs, even if it comes at the cost of doing other discipleship activities? And my answer is no. Making disciples should outweigh environmental stewardship. Now, having said all that, doesn't mean Christians shouldn't pursue environmental stewardship. They should. Where it is within our means, where it is not so costly that it really hinders our effectiveness in making disciples, Christians should do whatever they can to care for the environment. I mean, that is part of loving others, and I think it's also part of showing God's creation that he is the God who made all things and that we're to care for it. And so, look, just little things at Village Church. This means we avoid using disposable plates and cups wherever possible. We try to be wise with our resource usage. My family, we do FOGO, we do recycling. We try to use our car as little as possible. We try to walk where we can. But like I said, we still have 2 cars. We still do paper handouts every Sunday because I think that's helpful for discipleship. We don't buy ultra expensive renewable products because that takes money away from some of our other programs that we think matter. In the end, I'm not convinced that stewarding the environment is the number one priority of believers, even as it is important. Yeah.
Yeah, that's helpful. Well, great. We'll finish there. Is there anything coming up? I mean, Christmas is a week away.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe just some things for Living Grounded. So we'll take a little break from new content, but what we'll do is we'll send you out little reminders of maybe old episodes that you might not have caught, and you can refresh yourself on that. But yeah, other than that, Sunday church, but then Wednesday, 9 a.m., Christmas Day, 1 hour gathering. It'll be short, but hopefully it'll be a really helpful and encouraging reminder of the center of Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, have a great week and we'll see you Sunday.
See you Sunday. Ciao.